not bad. I was speaking to a police officer one night who had contacted us out front, and they said that they had been given the authorization from a manager in here, and they said that there was a notarized document that I could see giving them that power of attorney.
For
to be able to give people formal warnings to move on if they're not.
Okay, I'll call our store manager for you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Are these yours, Chantal?
What? No, those were just shoved under here. Because I was just cleaning.
Brian, you call Mobile 5, please. Brian, call Mobile 5. Thank you.
Buenas. ¿Del banco? ¿Por qué? ¿Ya ocupa?
He's on his way up here, so okay.
Hey. Hi, are you? Brian.
I'm Brian.
Good to meet you. Here's Will. I just wanted to see if you happen to have the thing on file for what that the police were talking about one night. I was hanging out in front. They decided to enforce your policy.
No loitering?
Yeah, we happen to be setting up our stuff. We like to set up downloads and stuff right before we go shopping. So they decided to assume profile us that we were shopping. One thing led to another. They basically explained that there's a notarized document file. So we just wanted to see that.
I turned it in because it's...
Oh, okay. So that's on their side.
Yeah, they gave me a sheet and I got it filled out. Saying that they have permission to trespass and they give tickets on my property without even contact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've been
because I have a, you know, I say anyone homeless or anything. I have a problem with the homeless hanging out and loitering. It's driving my night business away. People don't want to come here because they're panhandling, they're asking people and causing problems in our parking lot. There's drugs being done in our parking lot.
Sure.
So the police came to me. I said that is not wrong with me.
So the police came to you with a request to see if they could become neighborhood agents.
Well, because we've had to call them, and I have clerks. You know, I run a lighter schedule of staff at night.
Yeah, only one or two.
I have one manager on duty, 2 checkers, one. You know, some of the departments close at 8 o'clock, so I don't even have staffing on the departments. And so one night, a customer called the police because of the department. And then the next day they came and approached me because my clerks were working, you know, and then so my clerks weren't working, they didn't know what was going on, so that's what it was.
Interesting, very interesting.
So it was more of a civil thing where somebody,
Can I help you?
A customer called the police and they approached us. Because we call
Powerballs, power play.
3 Powerball
Anything
for
that's
play.
a statute of offense. Everyone's supposed to
like, well, if you do this, then we can just close through the parking lot. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking this is because there are other
I'm sorry, did you say free lotto as well?
Yes,
companies to enforce formal warnings. And while
Like the ones down here.
yeah, like Super and stuff like that, McDonald's. But we're finding, well, I have to go find out if they have something to file or if it's just something live or interactive given permission. But it's a power of attorney, obviously, for certain tasks. And what we're finding ultimately is that unless it's for certain types of programs, like if it's for businesses.
If you want to hold on, I can have a courtesy clerk check for you. I'm in the booth right now.
And then given
If
the
you want to hold on, I'll have them check. Hold on.
trespassing, charged with trespassing, they don't. That's where it got approved in the case law.
Produce, yeah,
But
phone service line one. Produce line one. Thank
business
you.
owner to
All right, sorry about that, sir.
personal, non-government
asking
related
questions
tasks.
about-
Yeah. And so, like, it goes.
I have no
it
idea
goes
where
like,
your cherries were or how much
if
they
it's
cost.
if it's decided that it
Try that.
judicial, legislatively, and like the best interest of the city for safety, there could be some arguments there around drugs and so forth. That was kind of the argument for.
$8.
But
Good
there's
luck.
never been
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Or just simply
Two stamps,
regular.
please. Just two stamps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, isn't that a big buy?
That's a big buy for you today.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that your stuff?
Yeah.
98 cents.
Get my bills off.
That's
There you go.
right.
So what we're trying to get to the bottom of it is anytime that private entities have to do things, they have certain obligations, you know, if they're open to the public and so forth. One of them is usually to give the formal warnings themselves. And so most of the time there's, we'll call it, the way the case law words it, is that there's very little, if not any, maybe incidental interest that the state would have in enforcing private property notices, you know, and so there's a difference between a notice of like pretty much automatic trespassing after hours in a closed area at night when it says no trespassing or it says open during only the business hours, but then it's another thing to kind of pre-give someone an authorization to just generally, whenever they see someone out there, they do something live.
What I do is, you know, if you shop my store, you're welcome to hang it out on the bed for 15 minutes if you're eating what you bought. You know, that's how it started. I used to get permission like that, but then there would just be loitering. Just people would just come and hang out. And then, like I said, in the evening hours between 7 and 11 or whatever, that time frame, they would just congregate out there.
Yeah.
Just causing problems. I used to get complaints from my customers. The employees were complaining, and like I said, another customer called the police on the people that were out front one day because there was what was going on.
Well, all of that, we've seen that before. As long as the cops would take the calls, then there wouldn't any real complaint. I mean, there's basically, if they're violating personal policies, then that's not really something that, like, you wouldn't even need to get the police involved. And so what we're finding is cops using public taxpayer dollars to enforce purely private property, personal policy. And so if you guys have a problem with people being out there for too long and something like that, that's usually a business owner's obligation to go tell them. And then, of course, if they refuse, well, it's easy. I'm calling the cops. You're now trespassing. And so it just gets really fuzzy when we see cops enforcing personal policies because they don't know how long you've been out there for. They assume. Well,
Taxpayer, my business is a taxpayer,
yeah.
so it's not public
Now,
funds
that's the thing, though, is that you're actually a private party entity,
paying taxes.
but it's private property. Meaning that the taxes go toward cops responding to trespassing allegations. Your taxpayer dollars are not necessarily going to be going toward them coming out and just, if you had a lot of other policies, if you had said only green shirts allowed, now you're asking cops to go kick people out that don't have green shirts. Obviously, that's not within their purview of the job. So there's a lot of case law I can send you on it. What we're mostly concerned about is just consistency. As long as it's written down somewhere, it may be valid what you have here. We're not disputing it. We're just saying is that there's no, people say one thing and then they say another thing. And ultimately, what we're really concerned about is the fact that the cops approach you. And the reason why is we see this theme that people are trying to like save money on like police calls in general for certain demographics, certain populations, homeless and so forth. But every single person in this planet, or at least in this country that is here legally, has the same rights to be due process on an individual basis for each individual crime. And so let's put it this way, up in the King Supers here, and then up in Fort Collins, there's a bunch of places where they're now closing their lobbies at night because they grew tired of taking too many homeless calls. But it wasn't really anything of a problem. Every time somebody loitered, they had the opportunity to call the cops, and if they did, then if the cops didn't remove them, that's a real problem. But it's this whole idea of there's just too many of them, there's just too many calls. That's just kind of how the public is. If there's a lot of people that are going through some things, that's just kind of how it is. What we're finding is up in Fort Collins is like the worst case scenario, is where there's a bench area that's on the east side of the Safeway up there. It's public land, and cops have always had to take calls there because of the loitering and drug use and so forth, like everywhere. Except that the business owner put up a fence illegally around that area before they were getting ready to put in a minor amendment with the city to modify, put in some laws and stuff. So when they put this fence up, it was without a permit. It was a hate crime. They said it was a temporary safety precaution against the homeless. And ultimately they said that it was because they wanted to save money on the calls there. And so in the end, is there a way to save the calls without human trafficking people? I find it very difficult. Let's put it this way, my brother and I, we're that one of the 10 that people tend to throw out with the bathwater because they say they needed to get that 9 criminals. You know, and so it's like a guilty until proven innocent approach. Everybody that's homeless on the streets is guilty, and then, you know, we try and exonerate ourselves as the innocent ones, but they don't want to take our stats. They want to say, sorry man, you ruined our profile. We were doing great. Everyone in the parks were meth heads. And it's like, well, you know, we need a place to sleep. And so, you know, you could do that, Matt. You could ask each individual person in the parks if what they're doing, and that's what you should do technically. But they just wanted to blanket policy. And so we're just seeing all these blanket policies. We're just trying to add them up, show to people that in the end it actually turned into human trafficking. Like my brother and I had to record ourselves going from establishment to establishment because we're there for just a little bit longer. But there's really no policies against it. There's nothing written down specifically, and so, for instance, I was going to ask you, like, what you guys actually have for your loitering policy. How long someone can be there for? Because the cops say 30 minutes, you say 15.
Right. Well,
is it written down anywhere?
No.
Oh, okay, so
just whatever. Like I said, I started with you go up and sit and every 15 minutes, and then it got out of control. So, or it was 30 minutes, and then we moved it to 15. Because they'd be groups.
Yeah, but even then, the groups, when you say that, it's kind of like, what are they doing? They're there longer than usual. They're breaking the policy. Then they should just be told to leave.
And then with the liquor store next door, we were finding them drinking out of the out front. And then, of course, there's no drinking on the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So then we just got the policy. You're not allowed to stay. You can come in and shop, but
yeah.
I couldn't. Because how do you?
Well, you would hire additional people. Let's put it this way. If it was a different demographic, it was just like an influx of migrant workers or something like that. Each individual would still have to be called personally. And you couldn't be like, anybody that's a migrant worker automatically can't be here or something like that. You know, or anybody that's not eating their food, right, actively. And so each policy, what we're seeing is that on a policy level, it's kind of like the blanket policy for like park curfew. Is that instead of dealing with each individual, which could help them too, like for instance, telling that person that they're there too long, now they know what the policy is. Now they also know that if they're going to stay there, that they're going to be trespass with an actual statute offense. You know, it helps them out. But it's these blanket policies of like, does that person not deserve that individual attention? And when you go to the generalizing of just, too many people there, or too many things like that, that scale is kind of arbitrary. What is too many calls? Who knows? But personally, we're finding that when people start saying too many calls, then now we can't hang out for them. And personally, we're the type of people that I don't think a business would have any problem with us, which some places don't, typing for several hours and hanging out. And so now we can't loiter, and someone's trying to frame it that loitering is overall this bad thing, when it's not really. I mean, as long as everyone else can conduct their business. And so it's these problem lawyers, these problem policy people that we're just finding there's no easy way to address on a blanket policy level without infringing on everybody else's rights. And so you just have to go up to each person individually. Or at least with the cops, with their authorization there, they still have to do an investigation. They walked up to us and said, "Get out of here." And it was like, we would just set up 5 minutes in. I actually had an audio recording of me saying, yeah, I'm going to go get some milk, just start some downloads. And then basically, now we have to kind of exonerate ourselves. We have to give up our privacy. We have to tell them, yeah, we're okay, we're here, we're buying and stuff like that. When, it's like they shouldn't have been putting the guilty until proven innocent, shifting the burden in the first place. And then just associating us, like, by default, like, just because a lot of other people are there, that a few bad apples ruin for the rest. When that's never the case. It was never ruined. Like I said, the only way that one could have it ruined is if cops just simply stopped taking calls there. As long as if there's a person there, it could be any reason. It could be an old lady that's, too drunk. It doesn't matter the population. It just seems like that person needs that individual attention. They deserve that individual attention. And to throw out everybody else's rights just because you didn't want to police that one person. That's kind of where we're getting at. So, but yeah, nothing against you. You're in the same boat as everybody else. What we're concerned about is whenever strict policies for like loitering or things that are innocent behavior-wise get put into place here, we find that those few bad apples, not bad apples, but the babies with the bathwater get thrown out, and we're the baby with the bathwater. And so we end up going and having to hang out somewhere else, which artificially blows that stat up just to look like we're needing to be trespassed from there. And so effectively, because people have been closing things down, that's been causing us to have to go around to more places, which appears to be like that there's more problems, that there's more homeless people coming in the area. There's only probably more homeless people hanging out in your area there because everyone else closed everything down everywhere else. So, but we could talk forever. We ended up throwing a bunch of crap on YouTube. We just caught so much of it so fast. Ultimately, like, cops don't write good tickets against homeless people. They don't even read their elements or statutes. I swear, we got picked up on a private drive the other day, and we knew our rights and our statutes and stuff. We were like trying to tell them it's a private drive. Your statute's not going to apply here. We've seen this happen before. People try and do this, and they were like, nope, ticket stands, going to court, and then we get to court and drops at the first appearance. We couldn't put in our own motion. All we had to do was ask them what the property boundary lines to which we were picked up between, and they're like, I don't know. It's because there isn't. And so we're finding that there's very few places where homeless type related activities are being due processed correctly. People are getting the real help they correctly need. Most of it is just a bunch of racist hate crimes, human trafficking, poverty, something like that.
I don't want any racist hate crimes. I just want the trouble with my parking lot and my store.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Because then when they're out front causing problems, they'd also come in and shoplift. And like I said, I'm lightly staffed anyways, so
yeah.
I got lots of video that I turn into my asset protection, and then if they can track them down, then they can go back and press charges and catch these people. But for most of it, I just missing out on the product.
The human trafficking would be kind of like if you're interested in preventing those other things of shoplifting and so forth. To use a strict no loitering policy as kind of the blanket policy is not really the right way to address it. It's like a band-aid on a broken leg. It kind of helps, but it doesn't really help. Or let's put it this way. I'll finish with this, I promise. No matter what people say their policies are, if they say they'll follow through with them correctly, you'll only profile the ones that aren't, or you'll only kick out the people that aren't paying, and so forth and so on. It may look like it could be processed correctly every single time. A cop can show up and tell them to do it every single time correctly. What ends up happening is not everybody knows the statutes, not everyone knows your policies and so forth. Cops don't know it. And so we were at a Commerce City Walmart, and they have a policy where you're not supposed to, when they ask you for your receipt, you can show it or you can deny it. And if you don't show your receipt, then they're not supposed to do anything. They're supposed to just kind of go look up some video footage, like you said, maybe prepare a case and have the cops arrest them later. But the point is that everybody in that policy, everybody in Walmart knows that you're not supposed to detain people at all.
But then I can't touch people. I can't
exactly.
out the door.
Yep, exactly. Except while that may be the case, while 99% of the people might know that out there, I got arrested by a Commerce City cop for walking out and not showing me receipt. He stopped me and he's like, "Hey man, let me see your receipt." Oh yeah, no worries.
Is that your security beeper?
Yeah. Run!
will walk, you'll have to stop.
That's not reason to detain. No, yeah. By the way, a beeper going off all by itself is not justification to detain either.
No, it's the cart.
Oh,
The
yeah.
cart has a locking.
Oh, that's cool.
So if it doesn't go through the check stands and out the door, then it beeps and locks the wheel up on the cart. It's an anti-theft.
Oh.
Of course.
I thought that was like just at the end of the parking lot.
No.
So you can't.
Some of them have it at the parking lot. It's like the store I was at in Denver, so they
Yeah.
can't take it off the property. We have those too, but this one they lock it
Oh,
at the doors.
that's pretty cool. But anyways, moral of the story is that no matter how much people want to put these policies into place that think it'll work, guilty until proven innocent, hey man, we're just asking for your receipt. Eventually, a stupid cop's gonna come by, literally detain me, literally ask me, hey man, show me your receipt. And I'm like, hey man, I'm exercising my rights. And he's like, I fought wars for rights, blah blah blah, and I know you're guilty. And then basically live, they had two employees go look at some video footage. No one know. I don't know. I was being detained the whole time by the cop in the exit. But they came back after like a couple minutes and said I stole the cheese. It was a packet of cheese. And obviously paid for it. And then so, of course, I'm not going to, be nice and give up my information willingly, like I said, privacy rights. So they went ahead and wrote me a ticket. And then in the back of the store, they walked me out. And as they walked me out, I showed them the receipt. And they're like, why didn't you show me the receipt before? And it's like, you got to do your job. You can't be profiling people, so forth and so on, blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, the ultimate math that we've seen is if problems get bad, if it's too many calls, especially for what people consider potentially being mostly a single type of demographic, it's never a single type of demographic. That's the racism, is that like it could be anybody out there. There may be a lot of people that do similar things, but in the end, Joe Schmo is much, much different than Harry. And so everybody kind of has to have their own calls taken on them eventually. And basically what we're trying to say ultimately is all those people that were supposed to get the actual meth charges in the parks for using the park just got a park curfew charge. And so they never actually got due process as the real meth. Or someone that's showing, not showing their receipt, they might have not paid for it on purpose. But the clerks there are like, oh, you just didn't pay for this. That almost gives them a chance to go back and pay for it and like get away with an almost theft, Right. And so criminals aren't getting due process on their base level. Calls aren't being taken on them for their real problems. They're just blanket policy to run around, human trafficking around, hopefully disappear. But most of them don't. They just go to the next city over. And then that's why you have so many people here. So we're trying to stay low profile, but we keep getting caught up in these things. And it was just a little distraughting to have an officer tell us that, without even coming up and asking us what we're doing, profiled us and said, you need to leave. And it's like, but we weren't violating anything. We weren't violating your policies. We were getting ready to shop. Do we need to buy this stuff first before we shop, by the way? Or before we hang out? I don't know. I feel like it would be within that 15-minute window. As long as you bought something within that 15-minute window, you're probably fine.
Yeah, I understand.
So yeah. Okay. Yeah, just food for thought. Plus, we want to see a document. We thought you had it on file, so I've been trying to get a hold of the city. They won't talk to me, so I'll just keep digging up that trail. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.